afternoon, everyone. Mary Sloan here with another episode of Inspirational Influencer News. Secrets of people making money and making a difference. And my guest this afternoon, Sharon Valenti, is certainly someone who is out there making a big difference. She's talking about unpacking past traumas and beliefs to live a better life today. You deserve everything that is good. And, I think we've all had our share of past traumas. Some we've dealt with, some we haven't dealt with, but we want to look at these and give you ways perhaps of unpacking them today. Sharon is a serial entrepreneur, a coach, a teacher, and she feels that her painful and tumultuous early years in life and subsequently finding her way into a life she truly loves led her to want to help others to do the same. She's totally dedicated to teaching people how to get control of every area of their lives. That's a promise. Some of the things that people learn through working with her are how to get the business and personal life they've always wanted, how to overcome anxiety and frustration, how to experience personal growth and enhanced development, and what it takes to feel confident and secure. Learn a process that lets go of blame and allows you to simply feel whole. Her past clients have praised her for her ability to problem solve, her sincerity, honesty, integrity, and ability to really listen and get to the bottom of their problems in a succinct way. She's compassionate, thinks outside of the box, and curious about life. Through her work, she's discovered ways to bring out the best in people and make them feel confident, which leads to more success at home and work in life. And today she gets a very interesting subject, me. We'll see how this works because I'll be here in your proxy because there's nobody else here but me. But I'd love to give Sharon a chance to demonstrate what it is that she does and how she works with people. And she's going to leave you with some questions. I may stumble around with some ideas about them. And that really could be a turning point in your life. So listen hard, pause, and take on some of the exercises as she goes through them. And as I said, I'll be here asking questions. I'm not going to write a letter, which is part of it, and I should take the time, but really you don't want to watch me write a letter. So I won't do that, but we'll do other ways to get around it. So Sharon, I hope this is okay by you.
Thank you. I'm delighted. And I know we have a brief window of time today, so I'm going to jump right into it. A big part of our suffering, all of our suffering actually, is caused by our thoughts. And our thoughts have created beliefs in our life starting from the time we were very young. And our parents may have said one thing and our child mind turned it into an unkind belief that we've carried through life. So one of the exercises that I do, exercise is the right word for it, that I do with individuals to help them identify most of those limiting beliefs that they're carrying that are running their life and not even aware of it, is we write a letter. And for your listeners now, you can certainly participate in this or take good notes so you can go back and do it afterwards. Mary's going to do this live. So the letter is to the person who has hurt you the most in life. And I emphasize this person has hurt you. So this isn't a dear so-and-so. This is a, you're a horrible person, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to read an example of a letter that I wrote, a short example, so you can follow along. Nobody will see this letter. It's just for your eyes. The first two parts of this letter, what I'm going to share today and what Mary's going to parrot back. So my letter was to my mother, and the first piece of this is, these are the things that you did to me. So in my case, I wrote, "You told me I'd never amount to anything. You obsessively criticize everything about me. You beat me with every object imaginable for no good reason. You embarrassed me with your constant drunkenness. You regularly humiliated me in front of my friends. You said I should have smothered at birth. You used me as a servant. You said I was the daughter of Satan." So obviously I'm letting it all out because this woman hurt me, or so I believed. This is how I felt at the time. This is the second piece of this letter. In all those things that I mentioned, this is how I felt in those different times. I felt rejected, unloved, unlovable. I felt alone and afraid and empty and depressed and hopeless. I felt abandoned, unwanted, invisible, unimportant, and unhappy, and more. There are two more parts of this letter, which I'm not going to go into now, but I want to point out in that this is how I felt at the time. Ideally, you wanted to keep it to those short 1 or 2 word nouns, if you will, adjectives. Sorry, don't know which is which, but just keep it short and to the point, because later you'll use that in a different exercise, and keeping it short will help in that exercise. So Mary, over to you now. You're going to write this letter to the person that hurt you the most. So what is it you want to say to that person?
Well, it's interesting because it too would be to my mother, who is long deceased, so she certainly won't be reading it. And yet she was also the person who loved me the most. And I knew both at the same time. And she was a music teacher, and she taught music in order to give me a lot of the things that she thought I wanted or needed, never giving me the one thing that I really wanted and needed, was her love.
Okay. So how would you write a letter to her then? What would you say, this letter of pain? What would that look like? What would it sound like?
Well, it would start very similarly to what I've just said, which is, dear Mom, you know, you were the person in my life who hurt me the most. And I knew always that you also loved me. But what you never gave me was the love that I actually wanted from you. You gave your love to a bunch of piano students who came to the house, and you spent time with them and you taught them how to play the piano. I had to go out of the house and around the corner and back into the house and through the front door and ask you to be my piano teacher so you'd pay attention to me. And this really made me wonder what I had done wrong, or why I had to be so ignored by you, you know. And of course, later I realized that it was a money thing, and that you were worried about not having enough money to give me the life that you wanted for me. So it's, I realize that it's complicated, but I did want to let you know that you really did hurt me by this. And yet you also raised me. So I'm grateful for that.
So here's what I heard, if I may. Mom, you showered more attention on your students than you did on me. And there's probably more to that. We're only looking at the pain. We're not analyzing the good. And of course, later in life, we can look back and see things differently. But in that moment, you felt your mom showered more attention on her students, showed more love to them than she did to you. You felt, this is how I felt at the time, I heard unloved and ignored. Anything else?
No, I was unloved and ignored. I was just not there. I was invisible.
So
and you know, that's sort of why I had to come around and ask to be a student, so I could actually be visible for a little while.
Okay. So you felt ignored, unloved, invisible. Did you feel rejected at all?
I must have, but I I don't remember that as an emotion, and it doesn't really come up for me. It's more the invisible, that I wasn't there. I wasn't important enough. I, it was like I wasn't as good as any of her students, obviously.
So here's what I heard out of that. I heard you felt ignored, unloved, invisible, unimportant, not as good as. And later, if you do this on your own, more than likely more things will come up. And then in the next part of the letter, it would be, this is how it showed up in my life. And as you sit with this, you're able to see. So I'm going to ask you this, and this is based off my own personal life and experience. Can you see in your past ways that you showed up as invisible?
Yeah, I mean, I was always a very quiet child in class. I didn't make a lot of noise. I didn't ever get in trouble. Never really said much. If a teacher asked, I'd respond, but I just didn't feel the need to stand out in any way, shape, or form.
You stayed invisible, basically. What ways did I'm unimportant show up for you?
Well, I was a very capable child, and I got spectacular marks. And so it's sort of like, that's how I had to show up. I had to get the top marks all the time. There was nothing else available, or they wouldn't know I even existed.
So that was about getting good grades. What were moments that you just felt you were unimportant in your mother's eyes or anyone's eyes?
Well, because I was so quiet, I mean, nobody spent much time with me. I mean, it's sort of like, oh, well, she gets good grades. She knows what she's doing. Nobody needs to spend any time with her. And so me and a book got to be best friends. I mean, strangely enough, I actually learned to read when I was 1.5, so that I had a companion.
That sounds kind of lonely. But as you dive into this, writing this letter, and I invite you to do so when we're not on the show, and just see what else comes up for you. So these are the things that you did to me, and this is how it showed up in my life. Excuse me, I skipped a step. These are the things that you did to me. This is how I felt at the time, and this is how it showed up in my life. Now, the things that come up in this is how I felt at the time are the underlying beliefs that we've taken on about ourselves. Did your mother ever say to you that you're unimportant or you're invisible, or told you to be invisible?
Oh, certainly my mother didn't mean that. No,
So,
I didn't have the words that said any of that. I
right.
had no words, period.
Yeah. So as children, our parents don't necessarily say those words to us. Those are the things that we tell ourselves about ourselves. And every time we get triggered in life by anything, rather than being reactive, if we could just get still for a moment, and really still, and ask ourselves, what was just reflected back to me about me that just triggered me? And dig down and see what you were believing about yourself. It's always some form of not enoughness, which these things are. I'm not enough in these areas. I'm not enough to be lovable or likable or companion, and so on and so forth. And you'll begin to see this pattern, how it showed up throughout our lives. And you will ultimately, when you start to question it, you will see it's nothing. We're trained to blame other people. And it's nothing anybody else did. We did it. We took on that belief. We said that belief to ourselves over and over and over again, and we reinforced it. And it became reinforced throughout our life until one day you say, enough. Another way you can get in touch with some of the deeper beliefs you have is to find a particular situation that maybe you've been dwelling on for a little bit. And I'll give an example. And then you add, and that means that. So let's say, for example, I'm not giving 100% to my business, and that means that. So I wrote 3 examples. The first things that come to mind are what you go to write down. I'm a failure. I don't know how to run it properly. I'll never be successful at anything. It could be anything. This is you taking that running thought, that debilitating kind of thought, write it out, and that means that. Can you think of a situation like that, Mary? Something you've been dwelling on?
I think it's uncertainty that I get in my life that, maybe this isn't good enough, maybe it's not enough, maybe I'm not enough, where it's hard for me to kind of finish things, get to the point where, okay, I'm done, because I'm never confident that it's enough, like I'm not enough, and so what I produced is not enough.
So for you listeners, let's try and work that into a sentence. I never finish things. Is that a fair statement? I never finish things. I'm writing it down. And that means that, what comes up? And that,
I'm not good enough.
And what else? I never finish things. And that means that.
I just don't know enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't know enough. I mean, what comes up for me all the time is, I'm not smart enough. And, reality says that's crazy, but it comes up.
So let's take a look at that, if we may. Let's take I'm not smart enough. So thinking on something that needed your smarts, and you have the belief I'm not smart enough. In that situation, can you 100% know you're not smart enough? 100% for sure, no, you're not smart enough.
No, I can't 100% know that I'm not smart enough, because part of me knows that I am.
Okay. So let's just stay with that. No, you can't 100%. So when you are believing that thought, I'm not smart enough, drop inside for a minute. And how do you react? What happens when you believe I'm not smart enough? What kinds of thoughts, body, feelings? What happens when you believe I'm not smart enough?
I want to get away. I want to leave what I'm doing because it's painful.
You want to run away? What else? How does your body feel in that moment? You believe I'm not smart enough.
Oh, frustrated and tired.
Do you feel any body sensations? Any knots in your stomach, tension in your scalp or shoulders?
Oh, tension in my shoulders for sure.
Okay.
And just I don't know, almost a feeling of dread. Like, yikes, is this really true? I mean, like, there's always that, is this really true? I mean, I don't know, is this really true?
So how are you treating yourself when you believe you're not smart enough?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Are you treating yourself as someone who's wonderful or like a victim?
More like a victim.
Okay. And in that moment, when you believe I'm not smart enough to do whatever that thing is before you, what can't you do in that moment when you're believing that thought?
I can't finish because
you can't finish.
I just can't finish because I'm not smart enough.
That's the belief. What else can't you do when you're believing that you're not smart enough in that moment? You can't finish it. Anything else you can't do in that moment?
Well, I find that my creativity gets blocked, like it's kind of like it goes into a spin, so that my thoughts spin, as opposed to, sometimes I just get up and go for a walk because I know I've stopped being creative. I've stopped the flow. I've stopped everything and I need to get away.
Okay. So I'm not smart enough. Let's take a different perspective on that for a moment. So you're in that situation. Let's look at it from the opposite perspective. What would that be? What's the opposite of I'm not smart enough in that situation that you have in mind?
I am smart enough.
Yeah. What's an example in that moment that you are smart enough?
I have amazing ideas and I can create really good products and really good documents and really good things that produce great results for people.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just a taste here. You see, we're telling ourselves I'm not smart enough, but when you take that to task and you say, let me look at it differently, you just gave a ton of proof that you are smart enough, right? And yet we let that negative thought paralyze us. You know, it's in my experience, it's just as easy for me to create all those negative thoughts as it is for me to create joyful thoughts. So I think on that, every day we have that choice. Shall I create negative thoughts or shall I create joyful? How many times do we choose all those negative thoughts? And it's no one outside of us doing it to us. It's us doing it to ourselves. And then look for the proof. You can't find it. You can't find proof that you're not smart enough. What you can find proof is how smart you are, right?
Yeah. That's interesting because what brings up that first I'm not smart enough thought before you can check yourself?
It's back to what we said before, and you said it yourself in that letter to your mother. This is how it made me feel at the time. One of the things you said was not as good as the student. So it's always that form of not enoughness. So that started when you were a kid. That belief started inside of you and stuck. And when you were through school, it got proved in different ways. It reinforced it when you became a teenager and an adult. Different things happened that just kept reinforcing that old running belief: I'm not as good as, or I'm not good enough, tall enough, smart enough, pretty enough, whatever the not enoughness is. And in other areas, maybe the invisible comes up, or I'm not as important as someone else, or I'm not as lovable as. It's all rubbish. Where's the proof? When we stop and we look at it, is it 100% true that you're unloved? That was one of the things you said. Can you 100% know you're unloved?
No, as a matter of fact, consciously, I knew I was loved. And, I had grandparents at home who, showered me with love, but it was my mom's love that I wanted more than anything. And what I realize now is that it was hard to get because she was trying to support the family. And, but what it felt like to me was I wasn't good enough and she didn't love me.
But even that you can question about your mother. She didn't love me or show me love because she was supporting the family. Can you know that's 100% true? Why she didn't demonstrate, why she wasn't demonstrative for love? Can you know absolutely that because she was trying to provide for the family?
No, I mean, as far as, looking at it as an adult, she was demonstrating every minute by what she was doing that she loved me totally because she wanted nothing but the best for me. And that's why she was working so hard. But that's not how I felt.
Yeah, and exactly. But we as children and throughout our life, we take on these beliefs and they just stick, and they do show up in other ways, as you just said. In this, I never finish things, and that means that I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough. Well, you just showed that's not true. And those beliefs may show up in other areas, but you've already demonstrated it's not true. So now it will begin to fade away. That not enoughness in that finishing things. My guess is you'll start to finish things because you know it's, and it won't be necessarily an immediate things, but you already know it's not true. You are good enough to finish things. You are smart enough to finish things. So get it done. No, I'm just kidding there.
But you know what is amazing, and thank you for this. This was really how this was going to work today. I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be different. But you know what you have provided me with, and I'm grateful, is a realization that I can stay conscious of this.
Yes.
And that I can deal with it consciously now, because it was still running me inside. And I wasn't conscious of it. So thank you. Thank you. Because now it is, you know, now I am conscious of the fact that some stupid old limiting belief that I made up when I was, you know, 18 months old, for heaven's sakes, you know, is now running my life. Craziness, you know, time to let go.
It is, you know, and we'll let the things that come up in those, I call them one-liner things. So I gave the example, I'm not giving 100%. You've got, I never finish things. And that means that the more of those thoughts that are going on that you can bring up to look at it like that, whatever, and that means that, and look at the things that surface right after that, and then say, is it 100% true? And no, it never is. It never is. But boy, they do run deeply, and they do run our life until, to your point, we get an awareness. We start living, and this is what I believe they mean when they say being conscious, living a conscious life in the now. Just don't run off in the bushes in your thoughts. Just be present here and now. That's where the peacefulness is. And people say, oh, I just want peace in my life. I just want peace. But what does that mean? What does peace mean? What it is they want peaceful thoughts. And the way to get them, in my experience, is to do exercises that question these thoughts that are causing you to suffer. It's that easy.
Yeah. Unfortunately, our suffering is an inside job.
It is, and it can be corrected if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired of being sick and tired. You know, we're very comfortable in our suffering because it's been familiar for so long. And what if we're not comfortable anymore? Yeah, let's find out. Yay, what an opportunity, right? Not going to be afraid of. Let's see how good my life can be. Let's get rid of all these crappy beliefs we have and leave the truth in place. I am smart enough. Gosh, I could do this. Well, that just opened another door. That gave me chills telling you that. You know, that it's just open. Yes, that's opportunity. And it really is that simple. We just showed it, right?
We did.
Yeah.
We did. And I'm grateful. I hope our listeners can do the same thing for themselves. And if not, reach out to Sharon. She would love to help you get rid of those beliefs that you are carrying around, packing around, weighing on your back, weighing here, there, everywhere, because they're not fun. I can attest to that, you know, and they don't make life easier. Definitely don't make life easier.
That's right. So, and if people want to reach out and just have a free 15-minute chat with me to see if there's a way that I can serve them, they can just go out to my website, isittrue.com. See, is it true? We're going to find out. Is it true? Isittrue.com, and schedule a time to meet on my calendar. And we'll just see where you're at in your journey and if you're really ready to make the changes. I can't work with you, can't help you if you're not at that point where you really are serious about making change in your life.
Right. Yeah, you can't change somebody who's not ready to make the change, for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, Sharon, I really appreciate you. I can't believe how fast these half hours go by. Oh my gosh, 30 minutes just
Thank you for having me.
disappears. No, it was my pleasure. And thank you for the exercise. That was really interesting. And I hope that enabled people who listen and listen afterwards to use it in their own lives, because it's worthwhile looking at your own life. And as I did, and ask yourself, you know, And I think I'm not in your position, but I'm guessing that it usually is a parent or a grandparent or somebody very close to us that um, where that love-hate relationship comes in, where, you know, yes, there's love, but maybe there isn't, you know, like it's in a child's mind, it can be very questionable.
It can, and I work with people today who it might be a current partner that they have, and it seems insurmountable. But when I start working with them, we find out it started back with the mother, or with the father, or brother, or sister, and it's the theme is just carried on, just a different person. It's now being transferred on, and they're miserable until they take a look at what's going on, take a look at those beliefs, and then they're able to let it go.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no point in dealing with the misery any longer. Like, get
Right.
hold of Sharon and let it go. That would be my advice. Anyway, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.